Okay, we'll call our meeting to order and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Julie, you want to take the roll call?
Sure. Dawn Vanny.
Here.
Heather Logan.
Here.
Deborah Nelson.
Here.
Marilyn Ertley.
Here.
Jan Schweddy.
Here.
Michelle Blythe.
Here.
Yvonne Gallardo.
Here.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll move right into our workshop items this evening. And first up is the 2023-24 proposed capital project budget. And this says Kristen and Paul.
Good. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, members of council. At the spring retreat, staff proposed a list of capital projects that were to be included in our next biennial budget. And these were projects that didn't have identified sources of funding or maybe didn't have full amounts of funding available, but they were identified as projects that were a priority. The city right now is in a unique position because of our ARPA funding, and we've had unprecedented levels of our construction sales tax and park mitigation fees. So now is the time that we'll have the ability to get these projects done, as we likely won't see this level of funding probably for quite some time. I did want to note, so in your packet, there's the same spreadsheet that we presented to council back at the retreat. I did add a budget timeline column, which are targeted dates to begin work. Some of those are scheduled to begin in 2022, so that will mean those will require budget amendments. So those will be added to the budget amendment list, which will be formally adopted by council when we bring the budget amendment ordinance to council this fall. The other projects will be reflected in our 2023 and 2024 budget, and that will be included in the comprehensive budget that we will bring to council in our October retreat. So you'll see those projects again. There was one small change to the park capital plan dollar amount. We increased that a little bit from $387,000 to $400,000 to include some fencing near the depot restroom facility. I do want to make note to council that the timelines I've included on here are tentative. I still am working with departments on all their budgets. There are some larger comprehensive like transportation or utility budgets that go out longer years. So just keep in mind that as we're fine tuning those details, the timelines might adjust a little bit. But I wanted to give you a sense that some may start this year that will require amendments, and then some we will plan to include in our biennial budget. I've also noted timelines for the ARPA projects. All of those projects have been started in some capacity, and we have fully allocated all of our ARPA funding. And again, some of these projects, most of the projects in fact have started this year, but some of those projects will carry over multiple years. So I've noted that on the spreadsheet. All of the projects are required by the Treasury to be under contract by December of 2024, and all the money has to be spent by December of 2026. And based on our current contractual obligations, we'll meet that timeline with no problem. So I don't need any action from council. I really just wanted to take this opportunity. It is a big capital ask this year, so I just wanted to kind of remind us of what we had discussed earlier, and just a reminder that you'll see all of this again, and this is what we're planning to bring forward, and that the funding sources that we've identified here will be obligated for the projects that we've identified.
All right, thank you, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Thanks, Jan. Go ahead.
You know, one of the things the city did that I heard more positive comments on than I've heard the entire 9 years I've been on council. And that is the LED stop signs and the flashing crosswalk signs. They were $16,000 a piece. boy, is there any way in the world we can increase that, Barb? Because and we're still getting complaints about places, and that seemed to work really, really well.
We do have those programmed in. We've actually got more than what's showing in there. We just ordered 8 of the flashing crosswalk signs. 2 sets of them are grant funded, and they'll be going in at Division and the Trail, and Broadway and the Trail. And then we have 2 other sets that we're buying out of this capital budget. One set will go by the senior center for that crosswalk. Those are another. And then we have one, we haven't identified the intersection yet. We're still doing the analysis. We're trying to target the most critical intersections first.
And Jen, I will say that this is part of the conversation of if we renew the Transportation Benefit District and doing traffic calming devices, these will be a consideration within that plan as well, too. But now, having this many on board, and if we get these others on board, it allows our staff to really test the effectiveness of those.
That's
I mean, I know
correct.
everybody likes them, but we want to make sure that they are effective for what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. See no other questions?
Well done.
Yes, thank you for the work on the capital budget. I would maybe just say for the public, it's about a $15 million investment in parks and roads and transportation and safety, so thank you. Okay, our next item is a proposal from Smartsheet for contract management system.
Yes, thank you. Staff is requesting the purchase of Smartsheet, which is a contract management tool that will centralize all of our contracts and projects and give us the ability to track information in more real time, like contract expiration dates, whether the project requires retainage, percentage of completion, budget to actual, whether the contract or the project has grant, a lot of information. This tool will also give the ability to have dashboard summary reports, so we can pull more information more quickly. I can tell you that the finance department, me in particular, is very excited about this tool. Right now, when we process invoices for contractor payments, there is a variety of information that we need to verify, and some are more complicated than others depending upon what type of contract or project it is. And right now that is a manual process. So we need to reach out to departments, try to get the documents or find the information to verify all that before the invoice is paid. So it's not very efficient. With this tool, all that information will be input from the departments. It will be readily accessible to anyone that we give access to. So it will completely change the way that we can do business and process our invoices. So it would really be a game changer for us. What it'll also do is it will allow me to pull information that I can include in my monthly reports to council so that you will have more timely information and a comprehensive view of where our project and contracts are at any given point in time. The system can accommodate all different kinds of contracts, including public works, professional service agreements. The nice thing about this is that our intention is to standardize all the data elements, so there's consistency citywide on what data elements that we want to track. So for example, when I pull information or if Paul wants to pull information, it's standardized all the data elements that we want to track. It also allows some flexibility for individual departments to customize that they might have some additional needs. For example, the airport deals with a lot of FAA grants that have specialized information that might need to be tracked that, say, Public Works wouldn't need to track. So there is some customization that would be available to meet individual department needs. I pulled together stakeholders from every department. There was representation from every department. They were allowed to see a demonstration of the product, ask questions. I got feedback, and all the feedback I received from the departments said it was positive, and this seemed like a tool that they wanted to move forward with. If we do want to move forward, the vendor is offering a discount if we commit to them or provide a purchase order before the end of July. That would be about $46,425 for the discounted price. If we can't commit before July, then the price would go up to $50,000. We do have funding available in our program development fund, so that's for the initial cost of the program. There is an ongoing annual maintenance fee that would be split among all user departments. That fee is about $39,000, and that would include all system updates, licensing for 15 user, unlimited users for just view only, like myself, to pull reports. It gives us 10 training sessions per month per user, our initial training, technical assistance by phone or email. And the annual maintenance fee, like I said, would be cost split among all the different departments, so there isn't one fund or one department that would have a significant cost burden, because we will be able to cost share that. I do want to say, I don't want to put Public Works on the spot, but they have been using this program for the last couple of years. I had an ability to go down and see how they were using it, and I was very impressed, and would love to roll this out citywide. I think we can create a lot of efficiencies with how they're using it, and they're using it in a lot of flexible ways that I know once the departments get on board with just kind of the basic contract and project management piece, that I think they'll be able to see other ways that they'll be able to utilize it. And one other point, just real quick, I did have a conversation with Brian. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be any significant impact to adding additional software to his team, because I know his workload and wanted to be sensitive to that. And this is a cloud-based system, so it should have very little to no impact to the IT department in terms of their involvement or continuing maintenance of the program.
Good
This
to
is a
hear.
long, I'll just add, this is a long time coming. It's something we've wanted to see for several years. It's been a hole in our system, is not being able to track our contracts to the level that I'd like to see us do. And so I'm very happy with the process that we used for this and the stakeholders group. And like Kristen said, Public Works has already been trying this for a while, and it's worked great for them on the projects, and it's going to fold in very well with the rest of the departments.
Be great. There's several questions. I'm going to just pop one in first. I hope that you're able to define a dashboard that's appropriate for us on council to take a look at. You know, we see what Jim puts in his monthly reports, and there's times like we don't need to see that deep into a contract. We just really want a more high-level view. Are we on track? Are we going over budget? Are
Yes.
the grant funds that we're expecting to come in coming in? So. And Heather also has a question.
Hi, Kristen.
Hello.
So I love this idea. When Paul says we've wanted it for several years, I can think of a couple of years when I was advocating for something like this. But what I need to know is, I don't mind at all the upfront fee, because you got to get started. The monthly fee seems very high to me, but if all departments are participating, probably worth it. So is participation mandatory for every department? It is.
This is a citywide software
Okay.
implementation, yes.
Thanks, Heather. Deborah?
So, just a couple questions. I'm assuming this would be something that would make the auditors happy also?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, we like to do things that make them happy with us,
Yeah,
so.
they actually, that's a good question, because they actually ask every year for a list of all of our contracts, and right now, we are trying to manage that manually, so
Right.
we're relying on all the departments to try to create a spreadsheet, and the finance is trying to manage that, where with this system, literally, I can go in and export a report, email it to them in 5 minutes, and it will be
Awesome.
done. Or we could give them view-only access, where they can get in there, they can't change any data, but they can go and look at the data themselves.
Okay. So then, well, it sounds like each department will have people trained in how to use it.
Correct.
And I understand that they'll all chip in for the cost of it. And so then I was thinking of I'm assuming it brings in time efficiency for the staff too, right? And streamlines their process, so,
I would think it would, Yes,
that's-
create efficiencies for sure, because if there's multiple people in a department that need access to the same information, whether it be to look at the contract or a change order, instead of having to try to go through a shared file, maybe they don't know where it's saved, or maybe it's saved on an individual's computer and no one else can access it, then they have to
Right.
try to call them or email, where now this is accessible to
together.
everyone that we give access to at the appropriate permissions. But yes, it's literally at our desktop, so I think it'll create a lot of
And
efficiency.
then one other question is, I was just curious if this would benefit our management of grants at all, or kind of help in our grant process? Or it's kind of after the fact, isn't it? Once we receive a grant.
I think it'll create efficiency in us in being able to create grant reports, because I know that's something that we like to report on an annual basis to the public. And
Right.
again, trying to track down that information, we have to pull from a lot of different sources. And we in the finance department have to create financial schedules as part of our financial statements that has grant reporting. So not only will it assist us in creating our financial statements, it'll assist in anyone being able to pull grant information at any point in time and having that summary. So again, it's just centralizing all that information in one
Excellent.
place.
The biggest benefit here is just having the information available and where we can review it at the administration level and at the finance level. If you have a contract or a project manager who's on top of it, they know where their project is. If not,
Yeah.
you may not have the information that we want to see until it's,
Right.
And real quickly, one other thing to add on the grants, there's alerts or reminders that can be built in there. So as an example, as we're having this conversation, it might be good for us to put in a begin date and an end date on a grant. Then we will be alerted, because we want to make sure we're spending down the grant in the
Right.
time period that we're required to. So having an alert like, oh, you're getting 6 months out or a year out, is something that we could build into that. So it would definitely help with that.
Good. Sounds excellent.
Thanks, Deborah. Marilyn?
Yeah, I agree. This sounds really good. I just had a couple questions. One, you mentioned that Jim's department already uses this.
Mhm.
So if we're going to do a new contract, is his incorporated into it?
Yes, we made sure of that. We
Okay.
involved Jim and his department. This will be an enhanced version, but Jim's department will not lose anything that they've already done.
just
They will
kinda
have the
merge
same.
together and-
Correct, yes.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure there would be no disruption to how they're utilizing the system.
Perfect. And then the other question I had was, it's an annual maintenance fee, and is there a termination date on that, or is it reviewed every year, or how does that work?
Yes, we would definitely assess that every year, whether we're going to start out initially with 15 licenses as we roll out the system. Maybe we don't need 15, maybe we need 20 because more people are utilizing, or maybe we need 12. So yes, it's something that we can definitely review and adjust every year.
We can't guarantee that the maintenance fee will remain the same. It'll
No,
probably go
I wish I
up.
could guarantee that, but I can't.
Hey, that's a good idea. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Yvonne was next.
So I just wanted to say that I'm really excited about this software. I actually use it at my work, and coming from someplace that has never used it to now going in, I do grants and finances and contracts and informal and formal bids. And so having Smartsheet has saved us hours of work. So whatever the amount of money is, with knowing what everybody's comp rates are and what we're paying for everybody, you're definitely minimizing the time. The learning curve is pretty low. So and knowing Public Works already is using it is going to make it really easy to incorporate. So I'm really excited for you guys. I think that's knowing how easy it is and how the alerts, the automations, the fact that as you're going through and you're staggering the jobs and assigning them to people, the fact that you're not having to hold their hand because you'll be able to set up those automations will save you a lot of time. And so I think it's great, and I'm really excited for everybody to have that.
Oh, great, thank you.
That's good to hear that endorsement, Yvonne.
Yeah, it's a great system.
Good.
Michelle was next.
Yeah, I have a comment on how wonderful I think this is for you, everybody in the city. I think any maintenance fees far outweigh, the price of that doesn't even match what it costs you now, trying to keep track of things and the potential risks involved, right? If you aren't able to find a contract or something goes missing or we get hit on an audit. So I think this is a wonderful tool for you, and I feel like you are probably a little behind on getting it, which is what you're kind of saying. So I'm glad you're bringing this to us.
Thank you.
You okay? Okay, let me just check with council who hasn't had a chance yet. Jen, did you have any questions?
No, everybody asked them.
Okay, go ahead, Yvonne.
We use it for public facing too, so like grants and contracts. Are you all planning on also using it for public facing too? Like if we wanted to submit our grants, we could use Smartsheet to submit them.
We
Are you going to integrate that in there?
We hadn't discussed that as part of the process, but we certainly can discuss having that
Yeah, the forms
option.
are awesome. So if you create a form, the public can submit a form through that.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of cool, especially for informal and formal bids, because the activity history on it gives you what the auditors are looking for to make sure that you're not opening something when you're not supposed to be, or if somebody complains and says they didn't receive it, or they received it, or they turned it in by this time, you can actually open it up and prove that, nope, it wasn't received at 5, it was received at 6:30 or something.
Okay.
So it's a really cool system for contracts too.
Okay, thank you. I'll make note of that.
Okay. Okay, Michelle, you don't have another question, you just turn your button off? Okay, good, just want to make sure. Thanks, Krista, it seems like we're all excited.
All right, thank
And I
you
know
so
Paul's
much.
very excited to finally get this tool in admin. Okay, so we'll move on to our next item, which is the review of the council remote access policy. And this says Paul's going to guide us in this conversation.
Yeah, and I'll share this with Steve, but I'll just open it up. I don't have too much here. This was a request from council to bring this forward for discussion and a look at. This is the latest version of our policy. I particularly highlighted a couple of sections in the remote access, because as I understand, that's what council wants to discuss. So I'll open it up to Steve if he has any additional thoughts.
Just by way of additional background, when this portion of your council rules of procedure was developed, I was looking at that time, a very few series of examples that were available, because most cities had not adopted specific policies on remote access, although the auditor was suggesting that if we wanted to permit it, that we should adopt formal policies. Now, of course, many more cities have adopted policies, and so it's not as unusual anymore. When I drafted those, I think it was pre-COVID, and so they reflected, I think, the prevailing belief at that time, which is that council attendance in person was to be encouraged rather than discouraged. And that's the reason why you see in the policy limitations on the number of council members that could appear remotely for each meeting, and reasons for being able to use remote access rather than being present in person. So that's just some additional background for those of you who haven't been around as long as I have. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have as well.
Thanks, Steve. I just want to, before the council discusses this, a couple of things. It says in our policy that 2 members could attend remote, but we don't have that capability with the streaming on YouTube.
I wanted to point that out, and that is in subsection C, and that's why I highlighted that, is that, like Steve said, when this policy was drafted, it was pre-COVID, and we hadn't worked all the bugs out of how to get our meetings out to the public. So YouTube wasn't a thought at that time. Our problem is the interaction between Zoom and YouTube. And so we stream on YouTube for the public to be able to view anytime they want. And it's fairly popular. We're seeing, certainly larger numbers than what we saw attending in person. And so that's the weakness. there with having more than one person. It's just very difficult to put the streaming together when we have more than one person on Zoom.
And so I just want to add to what Steve and Paul said. What I'm hoping that we take away from here is some sort of prioritization of the council. You know, we had a recent meeting where we had 3 people that wanted to Zoom in remote. You know, one was COVID exposed, and I can't remember, vacations and other things. So I don't want to have to make those decisions, and it shouldn't always be first come, first served. So I'm hoping the council will come away with some prioritization that administration can use for that. Who gets to Zoom in? So, Heather.
Thank you. I would love to see some prioritization, just so that everybody knows the rules, and what I'm about to propose can be the thing we do or the thing we don't do. For example, I think the first priority should be if any one of us is traveling on city business. We've gone to a National League of Cities conference in Portland. That person should get, they're working, and they should get first priority. Because COVID is still with us, I think illness could be priority too. Like, you're capable of attending a meeting, but you don't want to bring germs in. Or if you're injured and can't bring your booter scooter into the meeting, you know? I think that could be a priority. I think another priority could be legitimate pre-scheduled vacation. You're away and you've pre-planned it and you've asked for the approval ahead of time. There could even be a category for weird things like council member stuck at the border because she has eggs. Can't make the meeting because she's stuck at the border. And thank you for letting me Zoom from the back seat of my friend's car. After that, I think if people are just away for whatever, that can be one of the categories as well. But then we all know what the pattern is.
Okay.
So that's my comment.
Thanks, Heather. Marilyn.
I agree, Heather. I think that's a good format for prioritizing.
Thank you,
I personally, I'll just share a personal experience that I had in that I go away a couple times a year, and maybe one. I like to be at meetings that are where we vote. I think that's important. So I would like to, anybody who's on vacation or going somewhere would put in workshops. You can kind of miss because you can check it out on YouTube and deal with it other than at that meeting. But I had a particular instance where I had put in for meetings because it was a vacation, but then all of a sudden I had a family disaster and I had to be gone for 2 weeks, and so then I wanted to be at the meetings, but then that took up my 4 meetings, but I already had another trip planned in the fall, which sounds, people travel, if you take vacations, you do things, but if you have an emergency, where does that fall in?
Maybe it should be.
It's kind of like,
Yes.
and then it's kind of, how, do we all work it out? Do we have no limits? Do we just first come, first serve, and then it prioritizes, or what? I know Michelle had suggested that we maybe have a committee to go over it, and then, so I don't know.
So currently, your policy states no more than 4 times per year.
Per year.
And no more frequently than 3
3
consecutive meetings in no event, so.
So how do you make that work if you don't, I believe in the 3 consecutive. I think that's going too far to be gone, unless, I don't know, there's another one. Do you have an emergency? So, but maybe you don't have to Zoom in for workshops, because you can give your input and get that information through Zoom and then ask questions and whatnot before the actual meeting. So it's kind of like, where are we going here?
Okay,
That's what I have to say.
thanks. Deborah.
So far, I agree with both ladies that I've heard from. I like adding emergency to it. Or like injured emergency is kind of a similar thing, I think. I think of Michelle's arm, that's an emergency
Yeah.
injury. I feel like maybe a committee might be a little cumbersome.
Maybe.
So, and this is, a couple of thoughts come to my mind. Slackers do not run for city council. Okay? I've been here for 12 years now, and I haven't seen one yet. And it's just, you don't do it just for fun. And so I'm fine with the absence thing. I think 3 is kind of, I think of myself going through a year of cancer treatment. Now that's unusual circumstances, but I know there's been several council people years before me that went through cancer, and this didn't exist. And I remember talking with Councilmember Sola when he was going through treatment, and it was so hard for him because he was missing. And his heart and his mind was here with council. So I think, there's always a reason why to break a limit. So that's where I would like to put it into the consideration of my council and my city administrator, and again, personal, but I knew that I was going to undergo cancer treatment. I told the people here in the city that I knew that it would affect, and I trusted them to kind of work with me and let me know when I needed to be present in things. And so I've done the same thing with vacations. I'm going to be gone the next 2 weeks. I'm okay with missing next week, but the week after, I really want to be at the combined meeting. So I made sure that I arranged that I can attend by Zoom. I did this a good month and a half, as soon as the announcement came out about the combination meeting. So I think it's up to us who are not slackers to communicate to one another and to communicate to the staff and the mayor and say, hey, this is what I've got going on, who do I need to work around? I like this, having the prioritization. How do I fall in this? I'm hoping in coming months, maybe we can have a whole new revelation of technology and be able to include more than one person. So anyway, I guess that's all my thoughts on it there. And
How are other cities?
Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah.
Dawn was next.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I agree with the comments made so far, but my only, and I feel, like Deborah just said, the city administration, they could look at this, and I feel they have the good common sense that they can say, okay, somebody's abusing this program,
Right.
and they can call them out on it. But I agree 100% with the prioritization, because I don't know how many times you're actually gonna see somebody going on city business, or with COVID, or an emergency.
Hopefully not a
That's
lot.
what I mean, that's what I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. So then you end up with pre-scheduled vacations. My biggest concern though is, somebody goes out there, they do their 4 meetings and stuff on pre-scheduled vacation. They've taken them, now all of a sudden they do have a very severe family emergency or an injury or something. Now what do we do with them if we're limited to the 4? So that's my big concern, and like I say, I think I can trust Paul with.
How would you
city
address that? Because that's what we're here to hear, what the council wants to do with that.
That's, I mean, that's where, I think as a council or as city administration and stuff, I think somebody does that, they're not planning on having that injury and stuff. I think somebody should then be allowed to miss a few extras more than the 4 or whatever, just because of that injury.
No, I don't disagree with that. Do you want it just taken out of the policy altogether,
The
number of
days.
times? A number of times?
I think so. Just
I
take the
do
number of
too.
times out, and then, like I say, I think Paul and his administration can really start seeing if somebody's really abusing it or something's not awry, and
We haven't had that yet. We're tracking it because it's in here.
yeah.
And, of course, let council members know when they start using it. Hey, this is what the policy says. So far, it's been really a first come, first serve, because we don't have any other priorities in there. So, my first thought that comes to mind is that if you schedule a pre-scheduled vacation and you are planning to zoom in and then someone else has city business or emergency,
Yeah,
are
that
you
would-
gonna get bumped and is that okay?
I think that's what
I think-
I'm hearing them saying.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
These are the reasons, you know, I mean, we started doing remote because of COVID, quite frankly. And,
Right.
you know, and so that we could keep everybody safe and healthy. And I kind of think that should stay up there in the priority. We're trying to keep us safe and healthy. We all want to be here in person. I mean, I lug my scooter in here to do business, so we all want to be here in person. So I think that's kind of what I heard in the prioritization is somebody with a pre-planned vacation could get bumped for somebody who's got an illness or a COVID exposure. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Okay.
A push.
In city business, that's still a priority? Was that,
Yeah.
I just make sure, I wanna make sure I got.
Nobody's spoken against that yet, so, but let's finish with everybody who's pushed to talk, so we'll go to Michelle.
Thank you. I think also if someone is bumped from vacation, right, they can Zoom in and they can watch the meeting live time, right? I know
can
it's not
YouTube
part
it.
of it.
YouTube.
Or,
You
can
yeah,
watch it
that's,
on YouTube.
I'm sorry, YouTube, yeah. But I definitely think things should be prioritized, and vacation, in my opinion, falls to the bottom. Like, I would have loved to, sharing personal experiences, I would have loved to, 2 days after I fractured my arm, to have not come in with a temporary thing hanging there. But I couldn't because somebody was on vacation. I don't even remember what it was, but it was already taken. So I'm okay. I think it's great that we just have one person able to do it at a time, because I think it's awkward if you were to have too many people also, like 2 or 3 people zooming in and then 3 or 4 of us sitting here. I don't think it makes for a very cohesive team. So I'm actually okay that only one person can do it at a time. So, you know, COVID and emergencies to me fall at the top, and I don't know city business. I don't know how often that happens. I'm not sure it's happened yet. Or maybe it has, and I just don't know about it. But then vacations always get bumped. So the person on vacation that was planning on the meeting, they would just have to understand that they're no longer going to get that slot. Also, oh, God, it was something Barb said. Ugh. That's all I've got for now then. Until it
Okay.
comes to me.
All right, Jan, go ahead.
Here's where I'm coming from. I don't want us to change the number of 4 times a year or 3 consecutive, understanding that if there is, say, an emergency, and I'm just going to use mine today, because when I text Barb and Paul this afternoon, I had just found out at noon that I was positive. And and my first question in that text was, is someone on vacation to where I can't come via Zoom? But that could happen, say you have already used your 4 times and then all of a sudden you end up with an emergency. And in those cases, I think the city administrator can look at it and say, okay, you've already used your 4 on vacation, but this is an emergency. And then prioritize the other one. So let's just say somebody was on vacation today and Paul said, you know, I'm real sorry, but Jan just found out at noon today and she can't come in, and to where whoever is on vacation won't be able to Zoom in. And I'm a little concerned. I guess my concern on multiple council people being on Zoom instead of in person is we're out there, and YouTube and all of you who've been in there can see how many people are watching our meetings. And if they're only seeing a couple of people at a time, they're going to get the wrong impression about running the city and making the right decisions. But that's where I'm coming from. And sorry, I am really hoarse.
No, that's okay. Thanks, Jan. We hope you feel better soon. I know Heather and Deborah have pushed to talk again, but so has Yvonne, so I'm going to go to the council people who haven't spoken yet.
Absolutely.
First, take you out of order.
Jan beat me by like seconds on wanting to say that. So I agree. I think it's nice that we do. I know I've only been here like 3 meetings, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents. But I do like
You
the
have
fact
that right.
I do like the fact that it is the one person. I totally agree. It changes the atmosphere when it's just a few of us in here, and it feels good when we can actually see faces and talk to each other about it. So, but I thinking how life is and how crazy it has been these last few years, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous about the 4 times, and knowing how things are turning again, that I don't really like the 4 times, but I do like the 3 consecutive. You know, maybe there needs to be a conversation if something else is going on.
Okay, thanks, Yvonne. All right, Heather, back to you.
Oops, God.
Don't push Jan over.
I think I'd like to propose a possibility, because we keep saying city administration can just, Paul just sits there smiling. That's his job. One possibility is that the 4, and of course it could be any number, is for pre-scheduled stuff. But for emergencies and COVID and broken arms, those are special case variations, and then you do have the prioritization. Nobody, I mean, I'm sure Michelle didn't get up that morning and say, boy, I hope I break my arm today. So the things that you can't control, I think maybe those are the things that administration says, yep, this is an uncontrollable thing, that's our priority, we're gonna bump whoever was scheduled. And maybe, Paul, maybe you need a boundary, like if someone hasn't broken their arm within 12 hours of the meeting, then the vacation person knows they're good to go. I'm just trying to make it so you or Wendy or Julie doesn't endlessly have to figure out, okay, you know, this one had a broken arm, but this one had COVID, and this one was in California, and so the winner is.
I really want to encourage the people who have COVID to stay home and Zoom
Yes,
in and keep the rest of
absolutely.
us safe. So,
Yeah.
and as sometimes you don't know that 12 hours in advance.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
So I'm going to just say, you know, I guess I like what you're saying, Heather. I think it makes a lot of sense. 4 times, and then emergencies can add to that. That makes complete sense. But I don't want anybody to say, oh, maybe I have COVID, maybe I just won't test, and I'll go to the council meeting, and then I'll test, you know.
Yeah, if you're sick, please stay home.
Yes.
I'm just saying, maybe the 4 is for scheduled stuff, and we don't have a number for the uncontrollable
Yeah.
sudden things. That's what I'm saying.
Kind of a
Okay, thank you. Deborah?
If we were gonna set a number, I like the precursor of what Heather just said. You know, the scheduled number, I think 4 is just limiting for some reason. To me, it just, you know, and it's not that I go more than 4 weeks out of the year, but I just feel like it, 6 or something, you know, 2 a month if necessary. But I think, let's see, do away with 4, I wrote down, and I like the categorization, it's a little broader, you know, so the pre-scheduled, which is your vacation, actually also is a meeting. Oh, I know what I was gonna say is, somewhere in here, fellow council people, I think it would be good for us to also communicate at times. I'm thinking of a situation where Marilyn and Dawn were both gone at the same time. And I think Marilyn had dibs, she had scheduled first, but she realized that that there was an issue at that meeting that was important to Dawn. And so she had grace and said, you take the meeting. And I think so, whether it's sickness or whether you're at a business meeting, I mean, there's certain subjects that I've worked really hard on. And I may not be able to come for whatever reason, you know, but it might not fit into the prioritization. So I would ask, I don't even know if it's able to put that into paperwork
I don't know
somehow.
that we need to. I think if you continue to work with each other the way you have.
So
then
maybe this is
I
just
think
my
that's
way of
just fine.
verbalizing to newer council people. That's kind of been something that we've done even before Zoom, that we would talk to administration and we would talk to each other and say, you know, this item, I know it's coming up, can you let me know when it's coming up? Because I'm trying to work with you. but I want to be present to be able to ask questions at workshop and to vote. So, I guess that's
Voting
just.
is.
Yeah,
the
Deborah,
most
I
important.
want to jump in that. I mean, personally, for me, I don't want to make the decision. You
Yeah.
know, like you can come and you can zoom in.
Yeah.
And you have to miss
Yeah.
the meeting. I don't want to. I would rather you all work it out. What we need is a policy, as Steve said, that gives some parameters.
Right.
So that we have the policy and we know how to, but I don't think Paul or I want to be making the decisions for you. It's not our preferred place to be.
So
So
could
I
it
love
be-
the conversations that have happened. What this conversation came up with is there was some emergencies and they all came up at the same meeting.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, that's not very well defined.
So maybe could part of the process, the written process, be that a council person who is requesting a Zoom meeting contact city administrator, see, is there anybody else in the prioritization, you know, with, and let's say somebody has the vacation one, and let's say, like me, I had family members with COVID a couple weeks ago, so I couldn't come. So, but I would call you and say, okay, can I Zoom in? And you would say, no, Marilyn's already got it. So, but if there was, so then maybe part of the process would be that the city administrator then tells the requesting council person who the Zoom one is, so we could work
Try
it
to work
out.
it out.
Because I don't always know, you know, my husband asked me today, who's Zooming in tonight? And I said, I don't know, you know, I didn't think it would be Jan, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But, anyway, so maybe that would be, it kind of, does that free it up, and yet it gives a little guideline that it's a communication process, it's not like set in stone, but,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's collaboration, just, you know, if council can work it out amongst them, we can be flexible in who's zooming in. It doesn't have to be set in stone.
We could make a nod to these priorities in our policy, just in case y'all can't work it out, should we come to that situation and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But, you know, if we can all be adults in the room, you know.
You're always gonna have different, council people too.
Yep, Michelle, go ahead. Thanks for being patient.
Oh, yeah, no worries. What I was gonna ask earlier is, Paul, do you feel comfortable with everything that we keep looking at you for? And,
well,
so obviously, we all trust you so much, and so to ask you to, you know, help with some of those decisions if possible, or if necessary. But, I mean, it sounds like we should all be doing that on our own if that's the preference of
Yeah.
you and Mayor.
well, no, and I appreciate that, and what I'd like to do here is try to, when the discussion's done, is try to paraphrase what, Stephen, I think we heard you say.
That's
Good
what I
luck.
was
And
just
make
gonna
those
do for
adjustments
you.
in the policy, but I think, yes, the collaboration piece,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that can always be the flexible piece, you know. Just because one person's name is on the calendar to zoom in, if, you know, somebody else needs to and there's a willingness to make a consideration there, then, yeah, there's no problem at the staff level making that happen.
Can I paraphrase for you, Paul, from the notes that I took on this portion? So, okay.
get ready, Steve.
That way you guys can say if I got anything wrong. I've been taking notes here. But first, would start with B. Under B, what I heard is the council may attend remote communication when approved by the city administrator for up to 4 times a year for pre-scheduled vacations and additional times for emergencies. Is that kind of what I heard? Okay. All right. And then we should change C to no more than one council member may attend remotely due to our limitations on the interface.
So I'm
And
getting back up
that-
a second,
and
because
that-
you asked, because I said 6, so.
Right, you were the only one that did. I didn't
Okay.
hear any
Okay.
concurrence of that, so.
Just wanted to make sure.
And then there would be, the initial, somewhere in the initial write-up to it, that the idea is that for a prioritization would be to allow council members to participate in the process when they're away on city business, injured or ill, you know, for the safety of other council members, on a pre-scheduled vacation or out of town for any other reason. It's kind of what I heard.
Family emergency.
That would, I think that under number 2 would be illness, injured, or emergency. Kind of wrapping those
For
all up
self
into
or family.
one line, yeah.
So those take priority over.
Should the council members not be able to work it out among themselves? An administrator would use this as a basis of priority.
And if I can just add,
Absolutely.
I would likely want to incorporate into the policy some minor revisions that recognize some of the changes the legislature recently made on Open Public Meetings Act requirements. And from a procedural standpoint, it's likely that I would generate that policy, have Paul take a look at it, and get it to council, but it's unclear, given my schedule, that I'd be able to do that before you recessed in August, but we should be able to have something ready for you to review by the time you get back in September, if that works for council.
Yep. There's one thing that we didn't cover in this policy, and I don't know if it's worth mentioning. I'll get to you guys in just a second. But if we did have a member of the public under the Open Public Meeting Act that wanted to zoom in, then that council member who was zooming in at that meeting couldn't join until after the public comment period. Because again, we don't have the 2 slots open. So I just want to put that out there as another consideration. So Steve can work on that. Okay, and they could join after the public comment period.
I wonder if there's any hope for any improvements in our IT
I
capabilities.
think
That
not,
wasn't my
not as long
question,
as
but-
we're streaming to YouTube.
No, YouTube is the big,
That's where the interface
Yeah.
breaks down, yeah. So go ahead with your question, Marilyn.
well, my question was, I'm sure other cities are going through this. And have we ever looked into how they are handling things? Marysville,
Yeah, and it's,
Buckle-Teo,
it truly is all over the board. However,
is it?
we're a little bit unique in that we're offering the Zoom and the YouTube. That, again, that is if we weren't doing that, then it'd be less of a problem. If all we did was Zoom, it'd be
wouldn't
less
be
of a problem. However, I think,
Yeah.
I do have concerns about stopping the YouTube when it is so popular. so-
YouTube is really popular. I know a lot
I
of
think
people
that
like.
transparency is
I
important.
like to look at it after, but, so we don't know how many are doing the streaming through YouTube? How many other cities, or do we not?
I'm not aware of any that
I'm
are,
just curious,
that are
you know.
doing it
I'm not
like
aware
we're
of any
doing it on the YouTube.
None?
None that are doing it live like we are.
So we are, okay, which poses limitations, okay.
Okay.
Can you, well, I'm sorry, can you do we're streaming the YouTube live. So would it affect it if we streamed, or whatever you call it, the YouTube after the fact?
It doesn't change that because the
Doesn't
problem
change.
is trying to get all of those segments on one screen
Okay,
without everybody being tiny.
tiny, okay, all right.
That's why we went to the stationary cameras those are specific for YouTube because they're picking up the whole room and we get a better quality picture. If you remember what it looked like when we were working remotely and we were
Yes.
taking the Zoom and YouTube, streaming it on YouTube, unless you had a 84-inch TV, it was pretty hard to see
Pretty
who
hard,
was who.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, Deborah, final comments.
Final comment, kind of slash question, is dealing with the YouTube. Because what I was thinking about, well, like how you just spoke about, if there was a person wanting to make a comment, we as council people can quote unquote join the meeting in a quasi form by being on YouTube Live. Because that's what I did in the meeting I couldn't come to or attend by Zoom, is I did the YouTube Live. So, anyway, so then it kind of falls into not the remote attendance subject, but it does fall into council policies, I know I was filling out my little timesheet thing, and I didn't fill out that I attended that meeting, but really I did. I sat in my kitchen and watched YouTube. And so I think it would be nice if we could say, if we end up having to do that, because we don't classify in the prioritization, the category that we have to YouTube the meeting, I still feel like we should be able to acknowledge, hey, I attended the meeting. You know, and I can text. I mean, I was texting during the meeting. I wanted to text Jim and say, ha, 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 you got busted, you know. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there and see if that can just be something. Is that kosher if I put down, hey, I watched this meeting via
Yeah,
live?
I don't see where there's an issue with it.
It doesn't make any difference.
You're
Because I was-
excused from the meeting.
I was
and
gaining
you're
the
watching
knowledge
it
I
on
needed.
YouTube.
So I don't know, Steve, is that legal? Is that okay?
Well, first of all, wouldn't recommend texting during the meeting because that
Oh, I
creates
know,
public
sorry.
records. Secondly, it may present an issue for the clerk who has to draft the minutes to reflect who's attending and who's not. And if he or she's not aware that you're attending remotely, that may make a conflict between what's in the meeting minutes and
Okay.
your individual reports.
Sorry, I forgot about
I
you,
mean, I
Julie.
can be quick. Okay, Michelle wants to make one more comment.
Okay.
She said she'd be quick.
Well, Barb told me to be quick.
I did, because we do have a couple other items yet to get to
I
this
know.
evening, folks.
So I'm remembering what Jan said just a little while ago about really a lot of it's the perception, and we should all be encouraged to be present in person. And so I think that's the most important thing is like all of us always make an effort to be here. And I think that we set some like number 4 times, and I think those are all really good numbers for us as a group to work by, and then just rely on Paul if necessary. But I mean, we move on.
Okay, yeah, this council always wants to be here in person. I know that's the side they err on, so I don't harbor anything, like somebody's trying to get out of a meeting, that's not. Paul and Steve, do you need anything more?
I think you,
Okay, and this will come back to the council after their August break,
September, yeah.
in September, okay.
Perfect.
I'll be here.
Okay, so click your button
too,
off,
I
Michelle-
think.
Marilyn, and we'll move on to the next item, which is the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program review. Finally, Jim, we get to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and council members. This item before you is the 6-year Transportation Improvement Plan program covering the years 2023 through 2028. Every municipality in Washington state that operates and owns a transportation system, multimodal transportation system, must update annually their 6-year TIP to demonstrate that they are preparing for the future, they are making transportation improvement plans consistent with growth, and also to be eligible for federal and state grant funding. Included in your council agenda package this evening is a copy of the 6-year Transportation Improvement Plan matrix showing the estimated projects, the estimated funding for those projects, and the estimated years of expenditure. A map showing the location of the 6-year transportation improvement projects. A narrative for a long-range transportation plan for years 2029 through 2041. A list of TIP projects completed for the last 6 years. These have come off the TIP list, as well as a resolution for adoption of the 6-year TIP. The program before you tonight is fairly comprehensive. It identifies mobility and safety, as well as meeting growth throughout Arlington. And I will welcome any discussions or questions this evening.
Just before council's questions on it, I just want to point out, Jim and Mark worked really hard on putting this together. We did change the format a little bit from what you saw the last couple of years. As you can see, that 6-year TIP is a requirement. So that's highlighted. The projects are in much greater detail. The funding sources are identified so that we meet the state law. However, we have, in recent years, took pride in looking out 20 years on our transportation. So I just wanted to say we're still doing that. That's still as important as it was. It's just the format's a little bit different so that we're highlighting the 6-year TIP, but yet those years from 6 to 20 are still in the background. The projects are still there. They're just in a little bit less detail until they get closer.
Thank you for clarifying that. One of my questions was, will the 20-year TIP be updated with some of the new things on here that weren't on before, like the traffic calming devices and things?
Yes, they will, but the traffic, if you take a look at that, the traffic calming is going to be programmed in the next 6 years.
But okay, there's nothing beyond that?
This only has 6 years. It will be going, next year when I update it, it will update it for years 2024 through 2029, and it will include traffic calming programs.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because we point to this document a lot for citizens on the website, who talk to us about transportation improvements. And my fear is that we get a 6-year and a 20-year documents that are not in sync with each other.
They will be in sync with each other.
Perfect, thank you. All right, Deborah has a question.
Jim, I think this is awesome, the whole layout of it, thinking of my first, thank you. Thinking of my first tip list, I saw it, a long time ago. And so I really liked that in the tip that you highlighted too, the new projects that were added to it this year.
Yes.
So that was awesome for my eye to pick up. I really appreciated also to see the developer-driven ones in red. That was awesome. And then, again, thinking kind of along the lines of Barb's question, the 20-year plan. I know those, I went through it, and some of them are new projects. I remember kind of like in the dream world discussing them quite a few years ago, so it's nice to see them in black and white. But I was thinking, and maybe they're in here, and because I was trying to compare with the map, so I might have missed it. But I'm thinking like 20 years and thinking of like the East Hill development. So I didn't see any projects that might pertain to that. And is that because that's all like master plan neighborhood and dealing with developer, and it's not so much city driven? Or, well,
That is correct. They have to do a master plan neighborhood development. So they will be designing the roads, the lot lines, the layouts, and also the water, the sewer, the road, the sidewalks. That will be all part of their development.
okay. And then, well, I saw that there was some segments about the Tweet Road and connecting. So I'm assuming that's kind of thinking of that development in the future and making sure our part is connecting it, because I'm thinking, again, trails and crosswalks and all the safety measures, so.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what the Tweet Road project is for.
Okay, so I think, and then the other thing I loved seeing was the completed projects list. That was really, it's just good. It's just good to see what we've all been working on and put that check. So thank you. Excellent work. You too, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, Jan, you're next.
Okay, I just have a quick question for Jim. The 180th Street, I know it shows from Smoky Point Boulevard to Airport Boulevard. On the Transportation Benefit, I'm saying that wrong, Policy Board, anyway, meets on Thursday. And there were several items that address that 180th. So are all those included in that?
So I assume that you're referring to the PSRC Transportation Policy Board?
Yes.
Yes.
The grants that we're going to approve on Thursday.
Yes, they are included in there. We have funding for the 180th and Smoky Point Boulevard roundabout in the amount of $2.2 million. We applied for 180th connector with a roundabout at Airport Boulevard but we did not get funding for that. We are on the contingency list.
Okay. I'll have to go back and look at that. I think Julie's running me off a copy. It was unfortunately 70 pages long, so, but I was thinking there was like 3 things listed for 180th.
Are you done, Jen?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Don is next.
Jim, just a quick question. Item number 13 there, the 204th Street Northeast Corridor Improvements, 74th to 69th. Are we not, or do we have plans to do prior to that from 67th to 69th? The worst part of 204th.
This is a developer-driven project, so this is going to be developer funds that are going in there. The portion of 204th that you're referring to from 67th to 69th, that would fall under a pavement preservation. So this project here, this is one that I did not put the red in. I apologize. This will do major changes to the 204th corridor, put in a median and drop lane parking.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing that, and
yeah.
I was wondering about if we're doing the street, that little section there, about doing it all at once. And
It's going
because we're going to widen it.
there's no widening. It's still going to be a 2-lane road. But that section over there from 67th to 69th, that will just be a pavement preservation project.
Okay.
The road will be milled up and then overlaid.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looks like that's all the questions, Jim. Thank you. And Paul, I appreciate you letting us know that CED was working in partnership with, collaborating with Jim on this. I think that's
Yeah,
important.
they both did a good job on this. They were giving me updates all the way through, and I appreciate it.
And this will be coming back for a public hearing on August 1st. And we have a grant that we'll be submitting in August, and it needs to be shown on our 6-year TIP. So we will be requesting adoption of the 6-year TIP after the public hearing on August 1st,
Okay, thank you.
assuming that there's no questions or comments.
Right. All right, very good. So our final item this evening, I am going to, Jan, I hope you're feeling okay. I'm going to turn the meeting over to you. This is an item for the fly-in that Dave Ryan will present, and I'm going to recuse myself from it without actually physically moving away because of the knee scooter.
Okay, that was what I was looking for, was physically moving. Okay.
And I might
last
just add, if
item.
council has any questions on this one, raise your hand so Jan can see you to call on you.
Oh, yes, please, because I can't see you. So our last item is waiver of fees for the fly-in, and that's Dave.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. The item before you is the resolution to waive fees for the Arlington fly-in. We started this in 2016 with approval from the FAA and the resolution written by our city attorney. And we bring this before you every year for your approval. Part of the resolution, it says that it won't exceed 1 year. So that's why we bring it before you every year. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this.
Yeah, we do it every year.
Yes, we do.
Nothing's changed, right?
No,
No.
and you know, it brings in an enormous amount of money just with hotel stays because of the people who come in for it. It is well-known across our entire state and definitely helps put Arlington on the map. And I know that back, and I was on the council when we did this, it was all about the FAA, whether or not they would approve it. And finally, they did, so that we could waive those fees, because we do waive the fees for a lot of different activities out there.
One thing I might add, this year, we're doing our community airport day on Sunday. So the fly-in will be Friday and Saturday. We'll be doing the community day on Sunday. This is the first year we tried this. We think it's going to work out very well, and we're excited about it. So I hope everybody comes out.
Okay, good. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay, then that will be on the agenda for next week.
Thank you, Jan. Paul, do we have any administrative report this evening?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to give council just a little update. We've had a busy year in HR this year. We've done a lot of hiring, so I just thought it would be interesting to just summarize what's been going on. Particularly, I'll start in police. Everybody's familiar with that. Those positions have been hard to fill. We've hired 4 entry-level officers so far. So we have 2 entry-level officers that are in the academy right now, and we have 2 that we've just brought on that they don't have academy dates yet. So we're just waiting to hear on that. In addition, we've hired 3 lateral officers. So those are officers that are experienced. They've come from other departments. They don't have to attend the academy unless they come from out of state, and then they have to do an abbreviated academy just to bring them up to speed with Washington law. But we've hired 3 laterals. They're all in one part of their field training to some degree right now. So that is the 7 new officers that we've brought on this year. We still have 2 openings yet to fill, and we have 3 lateral candidates in background right now. So we're hopeful that that 2 of those 3 will succeed and fill the 2 empty spots that we have open.
How many are from out of state? Oh, sorry, Paul. Thank you.
I didn't put that into my report. To be honest, we didn't have, you have 2 from out of state?
Yeah,
There.
we have one for Portland.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That's really good news to hear. I
Yeah.
want to thank James Trefry and Jonathan, who've
In it-
spent a lot of time.
If you don't mind, or if it's okay, you got a little bit of time, I have, so in addition to that, in the police department, we still have an opening for a police support services position. Val just recently retired, so that position is open, and Jonathan's reviewing the job description. We do that particularly on jobs that have been filled by one person for quite some time. We just want to make sure before we advertise that those job descriptions are up to date and that they're going to fill the expectations we're looking for. We also have an opening for a record supervisor position. This fills Terry Quintrell's position, who retired just within the last couple of months. And we have some candidates that have successfully completed the first round of interviews. They're getting ready to start the second round of interviews. So that's our police department. That's the bulk of it. Finance just had a position that was vacated that we were able to fill. Airport has an intern position that is in background right now. We should have a letter out to that candidate shortly. We have an opening in IT. That position just closed. We didn't get any applicants that were met the qualifications we were looking for. Brian's on vacation right now, but when he gets back, I'll talk to him about that, and we'll decide whether we extend that opening another couple of weeks and see if we can find a candidate. We've had similar experiences in CED. We have an open engineer's position. We got no qualified applicants for that. We also have an open planning position that we received no qualified candidates for. Mark and I have been discussing, particularly on the planning position, what we can do to be able to fill that. Those are positions that are just in high demand, and we're probably going to have to create our own candidates from within. Jim in Public Works, he also has an open engineering position that we've struggled to find a candidate for. And they had a collection specialist in wastewater that was open, that was just filled with an internal candidate, which we like to do if people want to move around. However, filling that position now left an opening in the water department, so we'll be going out looking for a water distribution person. So that kind of sums up where we're at with our hiring process right now.
Thank you, Paul. I think that's helpful to us. It's good news again on the police staffing. Congratulations to all involved. hope we can get that one over the finish line this year. Great.
Question for just HR process with all these positions. I know with the police that we go out of state, advertising. Do we do the same thing for like IT and engineers?
We do, and it
and
depends on the
planners?
position, but yes, and we've been experimenting a lot recently with where to advertise and trying some new sources to see if that helps.
Okay.
And we certainly, each one is a little unique because we advertise on the normal government sites, but then we also go out to the associations for that discipline, because that's typically where candidates will be looking if the membership in the engineering association or the airport. But like I said, we've also been trying some other sources to see if there's something out there we're missing.
Okay, thank you.
I had just a couple of quick things on my report for those of you that maybe got the county executive's newsletter today. Something that we've been working on for a little bit of time is that he did announce that Workforce will be opening up a North End office for a connection site for employers and career seekers, so we're very excited about that. I believe that office is going to be in downtown Arlington at this point in time. They've also committed some funding to help hire some community engagement specialists to meet underserved communities, underserved career seekers in the communities, to try to connect them up with the jobs. Part of this is because of the growth in the CIC. And the one that I'm probably most excited about, because I think it also will be in Arlington, because it was our idea, was to develop an in-school youth strategy for helping to connect youth to potential career sites and jobs going forward. So that's all good progress and recognition from all the hard work coming out of the CIC.
Yeah.
And I think in a couple of weeks, Paul and I will be able to announce to you some higher education that will be available to the residents in the city of Arlington here.
Exciting.
Yes, kind of getting exciting again. Are there any comments from council members this evening? Heather?
I had a wonderful time at the street fair, got to work with James Tree Fry. I was amazed how crowded the street fair was, and people kept saying it's the best one ever. I don't know what makes it the best, but people were loving it.
Yeah, it was great.
I didn't count how many people we talked to. We did ask people where they were from. I don't know what was going on Sunday morning. Nobody was from the city of Arlington,
Really?
which we thought was really interesting. But the number one question that everyone had over and over and over again was, when will 172nd be completed?
Yeah.
That's been, yeah.
Well, it's down to 3 years.
You know, when we get those flashing reader boards that we purchase in the Capitol, maybe we should just put that up on there and put one on each end of 172nd.
That's a good idea.
Really.
Countdown.
Yeah, the
Kind of like the
countdown.
thermometer.
Go ahead, John.
No, same subject as Heather's this Saturday with Paul working the street fair. It was great. There was a lot of people. I mean, even at 10 o'clock in the morning, it was filling up pretty quick. And the comments that I heard was there was several that came in and were really hopeful, thankful for the 172nd work, and they couldn't wait to see it finished so they could see the relief. They were thrilled to see it happening. And then, like me and Paul heard too, there was several other people that had concerns around town with some sidewalk issues and tree trim and stuff. But other than that, it was a great time. Everybody else was having fun.
That's good. I saw that Sarah put out the call for art for the roundabout out there at
Yeah, I saw that.
172nd today, so. Did I miss anybody?
I'll just add, I didn't attend the street fair because I'm trying to stay away from COVID-type situations. So I really missed working the booth, but anyway. But just from my lofty perch of up on my deck, watching the cars coming and going, but also which I saw more this weekend than I have any of the years that I've lived here for 17 years. But was bicyclists. I saw more people bringing their bicycles and then biking around to the fair and then hitting the trail. And then they would be gone most of the day and then come back, so that was like 2 blocks north and south and several blocks east and west that I saw people parking like that with their bicycles. So it's nice to know they were using our trail system too.
Yes. Okay, are there any members of the public that wish to speak to the council this evening?
There's some.
No? And a review of the consent items, there's only 3 items going over to the agenda for next week.
Yeah.
Mind if we just keep them all on the regular? Okay.
I guess I can unmute. So are we done?
Yes.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Hope you feel better, Jan.